The night was cold and the city streets were empty. The tall buildings stood like silent giants, their windows dark, their walls wet from a light rain. In a forgotten alley, a man sat alone. His clothes were torn, his shoes broken, and his hands shook from the cold. He had no home, no bed, and no one to care for him. People only called him the homeless man. He pulled an old blanket tighter around his shoulders and looked at the sky. The stars above were hidden behind clouds, but then something strange happened. A sudden flash of light split the sky, bright and powerful, like lightning but without thunder. The man narrowed his eyes. That was not lightning, he whispered. The light grew stronger. It came closer, faster, burning across the night like a falling star. The man stood up. His heart beat faster. The object cut through the clouds and crashed somewhere not far from the alley. The sound shook the ground under his feet. The city was still sleeping, but he knew he had seen something no one else had. Curiosity pulled him forward. He walked through narrow streets, his blanket dragging on the wet ground. The air smelled of smoke. The sound of hissing metal grew louder as he reached a broken fence. Behind it, in a small empty lot, lay something strange, something not from Earth. At first he thought it was a small plane, but it was not. The object was smooth, silver, and glowing faintly like a living thing. It was cracked open from the crash and steam poured out. His eyes widened. What is this? He muttered. Then he heard a sound, a low groan like someone in pain. Carefully he stepped closer. His hands shook, but he pushed through his fear. He peered inside the wreckage. There, lying on the ground, was a figure. A man, or at least it looked like one. Tall, pale, dressed in strange clothing. His body was bleeding, but the blood was not red. It shimmered, glowing faintly blue. The homeless man gasped. His mind screamed at him to run, but his heart told him something else. This was not a monster. This was someone hurt, someone in need. He bent down and touched the stranger's shoulder. The skin felt cold, almost too cold. The stranger opened his eyes. They were bright, shining like two small stars. His lips moved, but the words were strange, not from Earth. The man shook his head. I don't understand you, he said softly. Still, he could see the pain in those glowing eyes. The stranger tried to stand, but fell. The homeless man quickly caught him. Easy, he whispered. You're hurt. I'll help you. It was strange. No one ever listened to him when he asked for help on the streets. People passed him like he was invisible. But tonight he was the one giving help. And somehow it felt right. He dragged the stranger away from the wreckage before anyone else could find them. He knew the police or maybe the government would soon come if they saw the crash. And deep inside he felt this stranger was not safe in their hands. Back in his small alley, he laid the figure down gently. He tore part of his blanket to press against the wounds. The blue blood shimmered, glowing faintly in the dark. The homeless man's eyes filled with wonder. Who are you? He whispered. The stranger coughed, his voice weak. A few broken words came out, mixed with sounds the man had never heard. But one word was clear. Friend. The man froze. His chest felt heavy. A stranger, not even human, had called him a friend. Tears stung his eyes. No one had said that to him in years. Suddenly the air around them grew tense. He heard footsteps, distant but sharp. Someone was searching. The stranger's eyes widened. He grabbed the man's arm weakly and pointed toward the street. His voice was urgent, though his words were strange. The homeless man understood only one thing: they were not safe. Whoever was coming was dangerous. He stood, fists clenched, though he had nothing but his courage. Don't worry, he whispered. I won't let them take you. The stranger's glowing eyes softened as if trusting him completely. The man's heart pounded. He had nothing in this world, no home, no family, no money. But tonight he had a purpose. The footsteps grew closer. Shadows stretched across the walls. The night was no longer silent. Something bigger than he could imagine was about to begin. And in that dark alley, with a wounded alien beside him, the homeless man realized his life was no longer ordinary. The encounter in the dark was only the first step into something incredible. The night grew colder, but the homeless man did not feel it anymore. His mind was racing. The stranger with glowing blood lay in front of him, breathing heavily, each breath sounding like broken glass. The man pressed the torn blanket harder on the wound, but the strange blue blood slipped through like light leaking from a crack. Stay with me, the man whispered, though he wasn't sure if the stranger understood. The alley was quiet except for the soft groans of pain and the echo of footsteps that had passed moments ago. Whoever was searching had not found them yet, but it was only a matter of time. The man looked at the glowing blood again. It did not behave like normal blood. When it touched his fingers, it gave off a faint warmth, like holding a spark from a fire that didn't burn. He pulled his hand back quickly, staring in shock. The stranger's eyes opened again. This time they seemed sharper, more aware. He reached weakly into the folds of his strange clothing and pulled out a small object. It looked like a stone, smooth and silver, with lines of light running across it. The homeless man leaned closer, trying to understand. The stranger pressed the stone against his own chest. The light spread from it, crawling like veins of fire under his skin. The wounds began to close slowly, the glowing blue blood being pulled back as if it was alive. The man gasped, stepping back in disbelief. What is this?" His voice cracked with fear and wonder. The stranger groaned again, speaking in a low, strange language. Then he pointed the stone at the man's arm. The homeless man shook his head quickly. No, I'm fine. You keep it. You're the one dying." But the stone blinked with a soft pulse, almost like it understood. Against his will, the man felt a warmth spread across his skin. His old scars, wounds from years of cold nights and fights on the street, began to fade. The pain he had long accepted as part of life eased. For the first time in years, his body felt whole. The man stared at his own arm, trembling. This isn't possible." His voice was only a whisper. The stranger's eyes softened. He spoke again, and though most of the words were alien, the man caught one more clear word. "Gift." A strange silence filled the alley. The homeless man sat down beside the stranger, his mind spinning. Who was this being? Why had fate led him, a forgotten soul of the city, to witness something so unreal? Then suddenly a sound broke the silence, a sharp metallic hum. The man looked toward the mouth of the alley. Red lights swept across the wet walls, searching. His heart jumped. They were not alone. The stranger's face tightened. He grabbed the man's wrist, pressing it with surprising strength despite his wounds. His eyes glowed brighter, warning of danger. The homeless man swallowed hard. "All right," he whispered. "We move." He helped the stranger to his feet. The silver stone pulsed again, giving the alien enough strength to stand. Together they stumbled out of the alley, sticking to the shadows. The man knew the city better than anyone. While others ignored him, he had learned every corner, every hidden path. Tonight, that knowledge was the only thing keeping them alive. They reached an old abandoned subway entrance. Rusted gates hung broken, and the smell of dust and damp air rushed out. The man guided the stranger down the cracked stairs. "No one comes here anymore," he whispered. "You'll be safe." Inside the dark tunnels, the stranger collapsed again, leaning against the wall. The stone dimmed as if it had given all it could. The homeless man sat across from him, watching carefully. For a moment they just breathed in silence, the sound echoing through the forgotten station. Then the man asked softly, "Why me? Why did you call me friend?" The stranger struggled to speak, his words broken, but one sentence came clear. "Because you stopped to help." The man's chest tightened. It was true. Thousands of people in the city would have passed by, too busy or too afraid. But he had stayed. He had chosen to care. And now that choice had tied him to something far bigger than he could imagine. As he sat there, he heard distant sounds again. Heavy boots, the sharp hum of machines. Whoever was chasing the stranger had not given up. They were hunting. And soon they would find the trail. The homeless man clenched his fists. For the first time in his life, someone depended on him. Someone powerful, someone not even human, but someone who had trusted him. He took a deep breath, whispering to himself, "I won't let them take you. Not while I'm still breathing." The subway was dark, but the faint blue glow from the stranger's healing wound lit the walls. The air was heavy with danger, and deep inside the man knew this was no longer about survival. This was about destiny. The healing was not just for the alien. It had awakened something in him too, a courage he never knew he had. And somewhere above, in the cold night, the hunters were closing in. The tunnels were quiet but not peaceful. The homeless man sat with his back against the cold wall, listening carefully. Every drop of water, every echo of a rat scurrying through the shadows made his heart beat faster. He had lived in the city long enough to know when someone or something was searching. And tonight the city was no longer safe. The alien stranger lay beside him, breathing more steadily now after using the glowing stone. But the man could see the fear in his eyes. The stranger's gaze shifted to the ceiling as if he could sense something moving above them, far beyond human hearing. Then it came, the low hum. At first it was faint, almost like the buzz of electricity, but soon it grew louder, deeper, vibrating through the walls of the old subway station. The homeless man pressed his ear to the concrete. Boots, heavy boots, but not ordinary ones. Each step carried a strange metallic echo as if machines were walking with men. The man whispered, "They're here." The stranger nodded weakly. His hand trembled as he reached into his torn clothing and pulled out a small shard of silver metal. It looked harmless, but the way the alien held it told another story. It was a weapon, small but deadly. The homeless man stared at it. Part of him wanted to take it, to feel strong for once. But he knew it was not meant for him. He had no training, no knowledge of what it could do. Still, he clenched his fists. "If they find us, I'll fight." The hum grew closer. Red lights flickered at the far end of the tunnel, sweeping across the walls like searching eyes. The man's breath caught in his throat. Shadows stretched long as figures entered the subway. At first they looked like soldiers, tall, armored, their movements sharp and controlled. But when one turned its head, the truth became clear. Their faces were covered with masks, not glass, but something alive. The masks pulsed faintly like skin, as if the helmets were part of them. The stranger's eyes widened in terror. He whispered a word, his voice trembling. "Hunters." The man had never heard the word before, but he understood. These were not rescuers. These were killers. The hunters moved in silence, their weapons glowing with faint red edges. They scanned the darkness, the red beams cutting across the station. One beam came dangerously close to the homeless man's face. He pulled the alien deeper into the shadows, holding his breath until his lungs ached. For a moment he thought they had passed, but then one of the hunters stopped. Its head tilted slightly like an animal catching a scent. The faint glow of blue blood from the alien's wounds reflected on the tunnel wall. The hunter hissed, a sound like metal scraping against metal. Then without warning it fired a sharp bolt of red light at the wall, just inches above the man's head. Concrete shattered. The homeless man grabbed the alien and ran. The tunnel came alive with chaos. Red bolts burned through the darkness, smashing into walls, sparking against metal pipes. The sound echoed like thunder. The man's heart pounded. He had never run so fast in his life, but still he dragged the stranger with him. They stumbled through side tunnels deeper and deeper underground. The air grew heavier, filled with dust and the stink of old water. The hunters followed, their footsteps relentless, their voices hissing in a language not of earth. At last they reached a locked iron gate. The man shook it hard, but it did not move. Behind them, the red lights grew brighter, closer. The alien pressed the silver shard against the lock. With a flash of blue energy, the metal gate melted open. They rushed through, slamming it shut behind them. For now they were hidden. But the man knew it would not last. He turned to the stranger, panting. "Why are they after you? What do they want?" The alien's glowing eyes darkened. He spoke slowly, forcing the words into rough English. "I carry—" "Secret. They must not have it," the man frowned. "What secret?" But before the alien could answer, the walls shook. The hunters had found the melted gate. Their hissing voices grew louder, sharper. They were coming again. The homeless man felt a fear he had never known, but something else rose inside him too. Defiance. For years the city had ignored him, stepped over him, treated him as if he was nothing. Tonight he mattered. Tonight he had something worth protecting. He looked at the alien. "I don't know who you are. I don't know what secret you have. But I swear they won't take you. Not while I'm still breathing." The alien's eyes glowed faintly, filled with trust. The sound of the hunters grew louder, their red lights piercing the cracks in the wall. The subway trembled under their approach, and in that dark underground world, the homeless man realized he was no longer just a witness. He was now part of the fight. The hunters were unseen to the world above, but to him they were all too real. And they would not stop until they had what they wanted. The subway trembled again. Dust fell from the ceiling as the hunters slammed against the locked gate, their weapons cutting into the metal. The homeless man pulled the alien deeper into the tunnel, his breath fast, his heart pounding. Finally, they reached a collapsed section, a dead end where broken concrete and rusted pipes blocked the way. The man cursed under his breath. No way out. The alien leaned against the wall, weak but alive. His glowing eyes watched the man carefully. Then with a trembling hand he held out the silver shard. The man shook his head. I told you. I don't know how to use that. The alien pressed it into his palm anyway. Listen, he said. The word was heavy, broken, but clear. For the first time his voice carried more than fear. It carried urgency. The man stared at the shard. Lines of blue light pulsed along its surface as if reacting to his touch. He felt warmth flow into his hand, spreading through his arm and chest. The air seemed to hum around him. What is this thing? He whispered. The alien took a deep, painful breath. His voice was slow, each word pulled from a different language stitched into broken English. Not human. From far stars I am, last of my kind, the man froze. He had guessed before, but hearing it spoken out loud made his skin crawl. You're an alien, he muttered, his voice half awe, half fear. The stranger nodded. Hunters. Kill my people. All gone, I run. I carry. His hand moved to his chest where the silver stone had rested before. Memory, knowledge, future. The man frowned. Future, you mean? They're chasing you because you know something? The alien's glowing eyes darkened. Yes, they want secret. If they take it, your world, your Earth, finished. The man's blood ran cold. He looked at the shard in his hand. This is the secret? The alien shook his head weakly. Not weapon. Not power. More. His voice cracked, but he forced the words out. It is life. My people's last gift. The way us to heal. To build, to save. The man swallowed hard. He looked at the shard again. It pulsed gently like a heartbeat. Not a weapon. Not money. Not treasure. But something greater. Knowledge that could change everything. The alien's hand touched his arm, grip surprisingly strong. You, human. You help, why? The man blinked. The question cut deeper than he expected. Why had he helped? Why hadn't he run? He thought of his life, years of being invisible, hungry, forgotten. People had looked at him and seen nothing. But when he saw the alien bleeding in the street, he had seen someone who needed him. His voice was quiet. Because no one ever helps me, and I know how it feels. I couldn't walk away. The alien's eyes softened. A faint smile touched his lips, though pain shadowed his face. This is why. I choose you. The man shook his head, confused. Choose me for what? I'm nobody. The alien leaned closer, whispering with the last of his strength. Not nobody. Human. The word echoed in the man's chest. For the alien, being human meant something more than he had ever believed. Before he could ask more, the gate in the distance finally gave way. The hunters' hissing voices filled the tunnels. Their red light swept closer, slicing through the darkness. The man clenched his fists around the shard. He wasn't a soldier. He wasn't a hero. But now he carried something worth more than his own life, something the whole earth depended on. The alien pressed his forehead against the man's for a brief moment, his glowing eyes locking with his. Protect it, he whispered. Protect. You. The homeless man nodded. For the first time in years, his heart burned with purpose. He wasn't just surviving anymore. He was fighting. For the alien, for the secret, for the world that had ignored him. The hunters drew nearer. Their weapons hummed, ready to strike. The man tightened his grip on the shard, his breath steady. The truth had been revealed. The secret was in his hands. And in that moment, a forgotten man, once invisible in the streets, became the one line between humanity and destruction. The fight was no longer about survival. It was about destiny. The broken subway tunnel was heavy with silence, but the silence did not last. The hunters were still searching, their red beams cutting through the dark like knives. The homeless man kept one hand on the shard, feeling its strange pulse, and the other hand holding the alien steady. But danger was not only behind them. From above the old tunnel came the echo of a voice. Human. Rough. Familiar. Who's down there? The man froze. He knew that voice. It belonged to Carl, another drifter who sometimes slept near the same alleys. Carl was always hungry, always desperate, and always ready to sell anything for a few coins. The homeless man whispered sharply, "Stay quiet." But Carl's shadow appeared at the top of the stairwell. His thin face looked down, his eyes catching the faint glow of the alien's blood. His jaw dropped. What in God's name? The man stood quickly, blocking Carl's view. You didn't see anything. Go. Carl narrowed his eyes. Don't lie, I saw. Something's down there with you. Something valuable. The man's heart sank. Carl's voice had changed. It wasn't fear. It was greed. Carl stepped closer, his boots echoing on the cracked stairs. You've been nothing all your life, same as me. But now you've found something. Something people will pay for. His eyes glittered in the dark. You think I'd just walk away? The homeless man shook his head. You don't understand. They're hunting him. If you call anyone, you'll bring death here, not money. Carl laughed bitterly. Death, please. That thing is bleeding light. Whatever it is, it's not human. And if it's not human, then it's not ours. Someone out there will pay a fortune for it. Behind them, the alien stirred weakly, his glowing eyes opening. He looked at Carl with something close to sorrow, as if he had seen this greed before on other worlds and other humans. The homeless man stepped forward, his voice low and firm. Carl, I won't let you, Carl sneered. You? Stop me? You're nothing. Always begging, always forgotten, but me? I'll be the man who sold the secret. He pulled out an old pocket radio, cracked but still working. His thumb hovered over the button. One call and someone will come. For a moment, time seemed to freeze. The man looked at Carl, then at the alien, then at the shard in his hand. He could feel it beating like it knew the choice he faced. Finally, he said quietly, Carl, don't do this. Don't betray me. Don't betray us. Carl's smile was thin and cruel. Sorry, friend. I've lived hungry too long. This is my chance. He pressed the button. The radio crackled to life. A sharp voice answered, We read you. Report. But Carl never got the words out. A hiss split the tunnel as a red beam shot through the stairwell, striking him in the chest. His scream echoed for only a moment before his body fell limp to the ground. The hunters had found them. The homeless man pulled the alien back, his heart racing. Carl's lifeless eyes stared up from the floor, still open, still greedy. For a brief second, the man felt pity. Carl had wanted to escape his hunger, his pain. But he had chosen betrayal, and betrayal had killed him. The alien whispered weakly. Human, but lost, the man nodded grimly. Yasha lost. The hunters' beams swept closer, their voices hissing louder now. Carl's betrayal had given them the path. There was no time to mourn, no time to rest, only to run. He tightened his grip on the shard. The alien's words from before echoed in his mind. Protect it. Protect you. The betrayal had cost them precious time. Now the hunters were nearly upon them. The man whispered to himself, No more running. If they want him, they'll have to go through me. The alien's faint smile returned, weak but real. Human and strong. The tunnel shook again as the hunters drew closer, their shadows stretching like monsters in the dark. And in that moment, the homeless man realized something he had never dared believe. He was no longer invisible. He mattered. His choices mattered, but he also knew one truth as sharp as the night. Betrayal had only been the beginning. The real fight was about to start. The subway shook as the hunters forced their way through the tunnels. Their red beams cut across the walls like burning blades, growing brighter with every step. The homeless man knew they had only moments left before the hunters reached them. The alien leaned weakly against the wall, his glowing eyes heavy with exhaustion. He had given everything to survive this far, but his strength was gone. The shard in the man's hand pulsed brighter now, as if it knew the moment of choice had arrived. The man swallowed hard. His whole life he had been invisible. People walked past him in the streets, never seeing, never caring. But here in the dark, he was the only shield between humanity and something far worse. For once, being invisible no longer mattered. What mattered was standing. He helped the alien to a corner of the tunnel and whispered, Stay here. Don't move. The alien shook his head weakly. They will kill you. The man's eyes hardened. Maybe, but I'm not running anymore. He stepped into the open, gripping the shard tightly. Its light spread through his arm, filling his chest with a warmth that was not fear but fire. The hunter's shadows stretched long before him as they finally entered the broken tunnel. There were 4 of them, tall, armored. Their strange living masks twitched as they hissed in unison. Their weapons glowed red, humming with lethal energy. They looked at the man and for a moment hesitated. He was not who they expected. One hunter hissed a word that sounded like mockery. The man didn't understand it, but the tone was clear. You are nothing. The man's grip tightened. Yeah, he whispered. That's what they all said. The hunters raised their weapons. Red beams fired, cutting the air like lightning. The man ducked behind a broken pillar, the blast tearing chunks of stone. The shard pulsed harder, sending a surge through his veins. On instinct, he raised it high. A wall of blue light burst from the shard, shielding him. The beams struck, but instead of killing him, they dissolved into sparks against the glowing shield. The hunters hissed louder, surprised. The man gasped, staring at the shimmering barrier between him and death. "It's protecting me," he stepped forward. The shard glowed brighter with each step, responding not to skill, not to training, but to will, to courage. The hunters attacked again, surrounding him with fire. The man screamed, charging forward, the shield deflecting blasts. He slammed the shard into the chest of the nearest hunter. Blue light exploded. The creature shrieked, collapsing as its armor cracked and dissolved into dust. The man stumbled back, his chest burning, his arms trembling. The shard had saved him, but each strike drained his strength too. Another hunter lunged, swinging a blade of red light. The man barely raised the shard in time. The clash sent shockwaves through the tunnel, sparks showering the ground. His arms shook violently. His body was too weak. He was only human, but in that weakness lay his strength. He refused to give up. He pushed back with a roar. The shard flared, brighter than ever, sending the hunter crashing into the wall. The creature shrieked, then fell silent. Two remained. Their hissing grew louder, angrier. They moved together, weapons raised. The man's shield flickered, dimmer now. His body sagged. He knew he could not last. He turned his head toward the alien in the shadows. Their eyes met. The alien whispered one word: human. The man smiled faintly, blood dripping from his lip. "Yeah, human," the hunters charged. The man raised the shard one last time. The shield roared to life, brighter than ever, but it cracked under the combined fire. Red beams tore into his side. Pain exploded through him. He dropped to his knees, the shard slipping from his grasp. The hunters hissed in triumph, stepping closer to finish him. But before they could strike, the shard pulsed on the ground. Blue light spread across the tunnel like waves, wrapping around the alien, wrapping around the man. The hunters screamed, their masks splitting, their bodies burning under the light. One by one they fell, their voices echoing until silence filled the tunnel again. The man lay on the ground, shaking. His breath came in ragged gasps. The alien crawled to his side, pressing a glowing hand against his wound. The shard hovered between them, alive, its light softer now. The alien's voice trembled. "You gave everything, Price." Of courage, the man's eyes fluttered. He felt the warmth of healing flow into him, but he also felt the weight of exhaustion. He whispered, "I'm not a hero. I'm just a man." The alien looked at him with something close to reverence. "No, you are more. You are proof. Why humans matter." The man closed his eyes, the sound of his heartbeat slowing. But deep inside he knew the truth. He had not been invisible tonight. He had been the wall between life and death. He had paid the price. And though the battle was not yet over, the war had changed because one homeless man had chosen to stand. The tunnel lay silent after the battle. The hunters' bodies had turned to ash, leaving only the faint smell of burning metal in the air. The shard hovered gently, its blue light dimming like a fire settling after a storm. The homeless man lay on the ground, his chest rising and falling slowly. His body was weak, his wounds deep, but he was alive. He opened his eyes and saw the alien kneeling beside him. The stranger's glowing hands pressed over his injuries, sending warmth through his veins. The man whispered, voice rough, "Are they gone?" The alien nodded. "Gone, for now, but more will come." The man let out a shaky laugh. "Figures. Nothing's ever simple." He closed his eyes, expecting darkness to take him. But then he felt something strange. Not just warmth, strength. His wounds were closing faster than they should. The pain faded into something almost peaceful. The alien's eyes glowed brighter. "Shard, not only shield. It heals. It gives." The man frowned, confused. Why me?" The alien leaned closer. "Because you chose kindness when all others chose nothing. You saved me when you had nothing. That is the rarest gift." The words sank deep into the man's chest. He thought of all the nights he had begged for food, for warmth, for someone to notice him, and no one ever had. And yet when he had been given the chance, he had stopped for someone else. That single choice had changed everything. The alien reached into his cloak and pulled out the shard. It hovered between them, glowing brighter again. The man stared at it, fear and awe mixing in his eyes. The alien whispered. This is more than memory. It is seed, my people's last gift. If planted, it will grow. It will heal worlds, end hunger, end sickness, end pain. The man's breath caught. Hunger, sickness, pain. Words he had lived his whole life. Could something like this really erase them? The alien continued, his voice softer now. But it needs a guardian. Someone to protect it until it blooms. Someone pure of heart. His glowing eyes locked on the man. I choose you. The man's heart nearly stopped. Me? I can't even take care of myself. The alien smiled faintly. That is why. You know suffering. You will never use it for greed. You will use it for all. Tears stung the man's eyes. No one had ever trusted him with anything. Not money, not work, not even a bed to sleep in. Yet here was a dying star wanderer, handing him the future of entire worlds. The shard floated closer, pressing gently against the man's chest. It sank inside, not as metal but as light. He gasped as warmth spread through his body, filling every scar, every old wound, every place where the world had broken him. For the first time in his life, he felt whole, strong, alive. The alien's voice faded, weaker now. Fortune is not gold, not silver. It is Gen's purpose. You have it now. Live for it. The man reached forward, grabbing the alien's hand. Don't leave me. You can't. The alien's glowing eyes softened, a mix of sorrow and peace. My time is done, but yours begins. With one final breath, the alien's body shimmered, breaking apart into glowing particles of light. They swirled around the tunnel like 1,000 tiny stars before fading into the shard's glow within the man's chest. The man fell to his knees, tears running down his face. He was alone again. But this time it was different. He wasn't just a forgotten man in a broken alley. He carried the hope of a lost people. He carried a seed that could heal Earth. Footsteps echoed again in the distance, police, soldiers, maybe more hunters. But the man no longer felt fear. He stood tall, his back straight, his eyes burning with new fire. He whispered to himself, I was nothing. Now I'm the one thing standing between hope and ruin, and I won't waste it. As he walked out of the tunnel, the city lights glowed faintly above. The streets were still broken, the people still blind to him. But soon the world would know his name, not because he wanted glory, but because he had carried the burden of kindness when no one else would. The true fortune was not money. It was not power. It was the chance to change everything, and it had started with a simple act in the dark. One man helping a stranger. The homeless man stepped into the night, no longer invisible. Humanity had been tested, and through him humanity had proven itself worthy. The story was not over. It was only the beginning.